You ever have one of those nights where you wake up and you just know something ridiculous is happening outside? That was me dead asleep 2:13 in the morning when my phone lights up with a motion alert. I'm thinking raccoon, maybe a stray cat, but nope. I roll over, squint at the app, and there's Margaret from the HOA, the neighborhood queen bee, strutting through my side gate in a blinding leopard swimsuit wine glass. In hand, friends in tow, just bold as daylight, even though it's pitch dark. She winks at my camera and yells, "Private pool, my butt," and right then her buddy trips over my garden hose and face plants straight into my tulips. Yeah, that happened. And Margaret, bless her heart, launches herself off my diving board with a cannonball that could have emptied half the pool, laughing like she owned the place. It's wild because honestly, I had a bad feeling something was up all week. Muddy footprints by the water, a strange towel hanging over my pool chair, little things that just didn't fit. I wanted to blame the neighborhood kids, but deep down I knew Margaret was the only one in Oak Ridge bold enough to treat private property like her personal spa. Let me back up a sec. When I first moved in, she knocked on my door with a smile that could crack glass and a clipboard that never leaves her side. "Welcome to Oak Ridge. Just so you know, your mailbox isn't regulation color." That's how I met her. She fined me for a garden gnome, cited me for garage grease, even carried a tape measure around, just so she could scold people for grass that was half an inch too tall. But when I put in that pool, my escape, my one treat after years of overtime, something in her snapped. She'd stand on the sidewalk, arms folded, peering through the gate, muttering about shared resources and community wellness. You know the type, if it's nice and it isn't hers, it must be public. So I did what any sane person would do. I reinforced my fence, put up cameras, tried to keep the peace. But none of that ever mattered to Margaret. If she wanted something, she took it. And when I caught her and her two backup singers splashing around at 2 in the morning, making a scene like it was spring break, I finally snapped. I spent that night editing every second of security footage, Margaret's cannonballs, her friend's spectacular fall, the cheap wine everywhere, put it all on a flash drive and delivered it to her front door first thing the next morning. She opened the door in a bathrobe and cucumber eye patches, barely looked at me, just took the drive and slammed the door. I'll admit I thought maybe, just maybe, a little embarrassment would make her stop. But you don't know Margaret. That afternoon, there's an official complaint in my mailbox. She cited me for negligent gate security and failure to maintain aquatic accessibility. She even included a $275 bill for a safety evaluation her guests supposedly conducted while trespassing. You can't make this stuff up. Then Cheryl from the board stops by, whispering that Margaret is calling an emergency meeting and trying to use some ancient HOA clause to claim my pool is a shared amenity. I nearly choke on my coffee. Apparently there's a line about neighborhood wellness. Margaret spinning it to say she can use anyone's pool for her health if she wants. I never signed off on anything, never agreed to a thing, but logic doesn't work on someone who thinks rules are for everyone else. Now here's the twist. While Margaret's making my life a circus, she starts passing out flyers, warning about dangerous chemicals in local pools, using blurry screenshots from my security footage to scare the neighbors. Suddenly, folks I've barely spoken to are frowning at me over their hedges. That's when the compliance squad, her friends Trudy and Neil, start showing up with clipboards taking photos of my bushes, measuring my mulch, muttering about height violations. It's like the IRS moved into my front yard. I asked if they needed something, and Margaret just shot back, "Just keeping the neighborhood safe," like she's some suburban Batman. I wish I could say it stopped there. Margaret had made a copy of my gate key during one of her earlier inspections. I found out when I came home one afternoon and there was a cheese platter floating in my pool, empty wine cans. On the patio, my outdoor speaker fried, and silent towels tossed everywhere. I checked the cameras, and there she was, midday. Pool party, thumbs up at the lens as she left. I called the police, but since I hadn't posted enough no trespassing signs, and she claimed it was HOA business, they just shrugged. Civil matter unless you want to push criminal trespass. Great. That night I cleaned every inch of that pool, found a weird tub of homemade spa mix under the skimmer that smelled like expired fish and lavender, probably her idea of a gift. My friend Jenna, who knows a thing or two about water safety, told me that dumping random organic goop in the pool could ruin my filters, or worse. Next day, another anonymous complaint, another fine, this time for not cleaning up after social gatherings, with a photo of the floating cheese as evidence. It's all so absurd you have to laugh. I'd had enough. I dug through the HOA charter myself, found the same clause Margaret was banking on, and there, in black and white, it says, shared use must be approved by the property owner in writing, and only if insurance allows it. I'd never signed a thing. So I called Thomas, my lawyer friend, and he whipped up a cease and desist so sharp it practically drew blood. But I wanted something more, something poetic. That's when I remembered my buddy Vince from out west, who worked on water stunt shows. He told me about this special slippery blue gel, totally safe, dissolves in a few hours, turns any pool into the world's slickest slip and slide, but completely invisible. I bought a trunkful, poured it in the pool one evening, and set the stage. Left my car parked down the street, travel bags in the window, let Margaret think I was out of town. 3 days later, she took the bait. It was just after sunset when she and her friends snuck in, Margaret, in her glitter robe, Trudy and some new recruit giggling and dragging another Bluetooth speaker. She does her usual act, climbs the diving board, and dives in with a flourish. The moment she tries to stand up, boom down she goes, arms flailing, feet flying, taking Trudy with her, who slips off a float and launches herself halfway across the pool. The Bluetooth speaker sinks and dies with a hiss. Neil tries to help, but instead wipes out on the slick steps, landing face first in the shallow end. By the time they crawl out, they look like drowned raccoons, mascara, running hair wild. And Margaret shouts, "We're leaving. This place is cursed," and then nearly wipes out again on the patio. The cameras caught it all. A 10-second clip hit the neighborhood forum by morning. HOA queen gets a lesson in pool etiquette, and it went viral overnight. I didn't have to say a word. At the emergency HOA meeting, someone played the video in front of everyone. Margaret tried to claim it was doctored, that she was inspecting for safety, but nobody bought it. Her robe, her shriek, her epic slip, they were all right there, crystal clear. And here's the part I didn't expect. Cheryl showed up later with a grin, handed me a thick folder. Margaret had officially filed an injury complaint against me for emotional trauma and a bill for her broken speaker. But my lawyer was ready. We had footage receipts, all the documentation we needed. The judge took one look at the video and threw out the case. Said Margaret manufactured her own humiliation. That line ended up taped on the HOA clubhouse bulletin board for weeks. Margaret tried one last stunt, a crate full of angry garden gnomes all flipping the bird left on my porch. I took a photo and posted it with the caption, "Yard sale on petty behavior, anybody interested." The comments exploded. Turns out everyone had a Margaret story she'd hassled. Nearly everyone in the neighborhood at some point, but nobody spoke up until now. With her gone, the place came alive. Kids painting fences, neighbors trading stories, Cheryl running meetings with lemonade and snacks, even a monthly yard day where people helped each other out. The best part, we finally had a real pool party invitation only, big sign on the gate, Margaret not included. It was the first time I could relax by the water without checking over my shoulder. Sometimes I still spot Margaret peeking from behind her curtains at the far end of the street, always watching, never waving. I don't gloat, I just smile knowing she's finally on the outside looking in. You know, there's a funny kind of justice in that, a kind you can't plan for, one that just sort of slips in when you least expect it. But let me ask you, what would you have done in my shoes? Where's the line between standing your ground and getting even? Ever had a neighbor cross that line? Drop your wildest stories and thoughts below. I'm ready for the drama, and I bet I'm not the only one.